Saturday Social is powered by EA Sports FIFA 23 with PlayStation.
Right, moving on, we're going to start by talking about Liverpool now, because it's been an interesting season for them, hasn't it?
It's great to have Paul on the show when they're not flying. I'm not going to lie, it's great to have Paul on the show when they're not flying.
A lot of people talking about their form. Superb midweek against Rangers, scoring 7 in the Champions League. Don't forget they scored 9 against Bournemouth this season as well. But their form this season has been a little bit inconsistent. We can look at the Premier League table. So this is last season, just to remind us of how well they did. As you can see there, finishing a point behind, only a point behind champions Man City. And of course, they were on for the quadruple last season. So it's a fantastic season last season. Compare that to their form this season. So this is the current Premier League table. Worth pointing out, we are only 8 games in for them.
I've never seen a table with 11 teams.
No,
graphics guys worked overtime there.
Paul is not happy with the graphics department. Wow. They have actually gone down to 11th because of the Friday night football result there. And they are 14 points. I have to work that out there, my maths. They're 14 points behind leaders Arsenal. They do have a game in hand, though. So there have been positives. We've seen the big wins. We've seen the big midweek. But a lot of people have been talking, especially on social media, about the inconsistency in the league. So we've tasked our guests with picking the 5 biggest reasons or the problems as to why they find themselves where they are in the league. As you can see, the Saturday Social board is out. And we've actually got personalised magnets for the guests' faces. Look at that.
So
and I've got to say,
Paul
is looking brute there. I mean, David's too. Don't get
slowed. That's more of a reflection on Manchester United in the last 10 years.
Dave looks concerned.
Still very concerned.
Major issues with the photographer on that one.
Paul is looking fantastic there. And we've tasked you with the 5 biggest problems. It's very simple. The order is 1 to 5. The one that you think is the 5th biggest problem you put in 5, and the one that you think is the biggest issue you put as number 1. OK, so 5th biggest problem that Liverpool have to address. For you, Paul, you go to all the games, home and away. What is it?
Yeah, I did pitch to have all 10 for this one, to be honest, but I thought it was only fair that we split it. So I've gone with the integration of Darwin Nunez. So obviously started to score now. He started to settle a little bit more. The suspension, you know, for the sending off against Crystal Palace.
It was a disaster, that.
Absolutely. You know, in a time as well, and we'll come on to another point, you know, what Liverpool were going through at the time more broadly. But you brought this guy in, you know, he started really well in the Community Shield. Obviously, a lot of money invested in him. Liverpool obviously see him as one for the future as well as one for today. But at a time where they could really have done with this new guy on the pitch, he's not been there. And so really now, you know, we're for Liverpool 8-9 games into the season, and we're only just starting to see him click. That 3 games really undercut what they were trying to do.
What do you think his best role is? Because I've seen a lot of debate about this. Now that you've shifted to that front 4, do you think he is slightly better coming in off the left, or do you think he is better through the middle?
I think he's there, and I liked him how they used him in the Community Shield, where it was sort of half an hour toward the end, tiring legs, tiring defence, a little bit more space opens up. He's a predator. He wants to score goals, which is so much more different to a lot of the players we've had over the years. So I think he's central. I think he's actually working quite well with another guy in there around him, and all of a sudden you've got 3 people buzzing around him. Seems to work really well. But yeah, I'm not 100% convinced if you took him out of the centre-forward position. I'm sure that you mentioned this to me about playing from the left. He looks a little bit uncomfortable, a little bit untidy, but
I think that's the thing. It's a completely different profile to the 9 that Liverpool have been playing. It's been a Firmino, it's been a false 9 type player. Nunez is very different to that, stretches the opposition with his movement in behind. The interesting thing, underlying stats are very good behind Haaland in terms of XG per 90. So he's getting into the right areas, but necessarily not taking his chances, Paul. I think that has been the big problem.
Yeah, absolutely. Good
4 goals, 1 assist, 1 yellow card, 1 red card, penalty 1, 10 appearances for Liverpool. So he's been involved in all sorts, hasn't it? It's been a lively start to his Liverpool career.
Yeah, lively start. Again, some really positive shoots there, and again, letting him have shots on goal makes a difference, you know, and that's the one thing Liverpool have lacked. If they'd had a player like him in the Champions League final, would it have been a different story? Quite possibly.
I think as well, he's suffering a little bit from the fact that, you know, Erling Haaland has come in and is scoring at such a frightening rate that everybody's like, well, if Haaland's scoring like this...
We'll always have that moment when he scored in the Charity Shield and Haaland missed and everyone laughed.
It's because they were both signed at similar times, and the comparison happened straight away, didn't it? Who's going to score more, Nunez and Haaland? Obviously, Haaland has been unbelievable. So, Dave, this is your 5th biggest issue that Liverpool need to address. So you've not gone with Darwin Nunez. Who have you gone with?
I've gone with Virgil van Dijk, and I don't think it's a massive problem. but I think it's dropped off a little bit. So when you look at the stats where Van Dijk really excels, it's not getting dribble past. I think that's one of the key things of his game. You know, he went for a season without, not getting dribble past. So I think that's a big part of it. You look at last season versus this season, per 90, he's getting dribble past twice as many times. You look at his tackle success versus dribblers, it's from 73% to 33%.
There we go. Here come the stats.
It's not massive, but I think it's an issue that's just in the background of it. That I think if the team's better, Van Dijk's performances are probably better. He's protected a bit more. Yeah. So for me, number 5, I'm going to go with Virgil
underneath
van Dijk.
yourself.
Surely put it under your own.
Underneath your own self.
Get your own column going, Dave.
It's a great point.
Let's talk about Van Dijk, Paul, because I think if we were saying that we were going to have this chat 2 years ago when he was linked with, Ballon d'Ors and best players, I mean, Virgil van Dijk is one of the greatest centre-backs in the world on his day, isn't it? Can you explain from Liverpool fans' perspective, because I've seen other Liverpool fans sort of a bit bemused as to his form, because he is still a top player. What do you put his form down to?
Honestly, I mean, I was just so surprised he was as good as he was last season, to be perfectly honest. He came back from a major injury, and then played more games than anyone expected, and then he's come back around this year, and I think some of it's systemic. I think it's to do with how Liverpool are playing. I think the defence has been a bit more exposed than he would like, and there's also this thing sometimes, and I think you'll see a bit of this, and I don't want to, it's tough to say this because without truly knowing, but I think the World Cup plays a little bit on players' minds. For Virgil, he's probably not going to get another World Cup, certainly not at the peak of his powers. Having just had a serious injury the year before, he'll want to make sure that he just gets himself to that tournament. I mean, that's probably a fractional of a percentage. Yeah. But ultimately, he's one of them. He's won everything for us, and he's such a cool customer that sometimes you want to play yourself back into form by doubling down on what you do. Whereas there's a couple of times where maybe just be a bit more aggressive, just be a bit more front foot, go and prove that you're bigger and faster and stronger than the guys going up against you. I think he's kind of been a bit more passive than I would have liked this season.
That Mitrovic moment where he won the penalty was a big one. Where I think that's the first time where we've looked at Virgil van Dijk on, he's not in control of this situation. Usually, like 2v1, he's like, you're fine. Remember the Sissoko
against
moment against Liverpool, where he's like dealing with 2 players, and you're like, he's absolutely in control. He's fine in this situation. It's strange to watch him because it's so statistically there's not that much that's changed. He's still dominant in the air. He's still good with the ball at his feet. But it's little moments that you think, is he at the peak of his powers anymore?
Yeah. And we've got Haaland on Sunday as well, so that's going to be some battle, isn't it? Let's move on to the next up then. Paul, who have you got?
This is your 4th biggest issue that's faced Liverpool this season.
So look, I'm going to put it's Trent's face, but it's not necessarily Trent so much as it is Liverpool having not had proper cover for Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Right.
He's been in the top, obviously the top 5, but certainly the top 5 and at least the top 3 to 4 most minutes played for Liverpool over the last 5 years. He's unbelievable, and I'm not going to sit here and debate the merits or demerits of him as a footballer. He's world class. He's the best right back on the planet for me, but having someone who can come in every now and again and be a complete understudy. At the moment, Andy Robertson's just coming back from injury, but Tsimikas has come in and he's been brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And it just means that you get him more at the peak of his powers when he is playing, as opposed to having to be flat out for the entire season.
Yeah, of course, with the schedule, as you mentioned, the World Cup, the schedule, it's even more gruelling, isn't it, because of the World Cup, so you're playing many games. Dave, I want to get your thoughts on this, because you sat in that very chair that Paul's in, I believe. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I believe that you said Trent Alexander-Arnold will become the greatest fullback in football history. Is that right?
Yeah, that's pretty fair to say.
So that's what you said on the show.
Absolutely.
And of course, we know he's a top player. But again, it's crazy that we're having these conversations, but a lot of people have been quite vocal about his form this season. So what have you made of Trent this season?
I think you need a positional change. I think it's the time. I think right now is the time where Liverpool are getting targeted. We'll move on to something in a minute where I'll talk about in more depth. They're getting targeted from a defensive perspective. Move Trent out of that area. Trent is so good with the ball.
Where do you play him?
Either play him right central midfield and 3 in midfield, or at the moment maybe play him on the right wing in this 4-2-4 or 4-4-2 shape they've got. I think he would be absolutely brilliant in those situations. You want to get him in those areas high up the pitch. You want him to create. You want him to open things up for Liverpool. His passing is fantastic. His vision is ridiculous. But at the moment, teams are coming to Anfield or Liverpool going away and they're going, right-hand side, Trent's playing, we're going to target that. And that's a problem. So moving him out that area, you still want his output. His output's ridiculous.
So you've got this as one of your problems, haven't you? You can put it on the board if you want, because it is a very similar sort of issue, isn't it? This right-hand side of the pitch.
There's a few problems that are kind of linked together. But the right-hand side of the pitch is my number 1 problem for Liverpool.
Are we doing that? Are we doing this number 1 straight away?
I think we should, because it's linked, isn't it? It is intrinsically linked.
That's the biggest issue for Liverpool, the right-hand side.
Absolutely. The way that it's... the components aren't working at the moment. I went back and I watched every single goal Liverpool conceded this season. it was something like 10 of the
saved. You're just in a bad mood. Watch every goal. Let's go look and see.
I finished and I was like,
just to get into Paul's head, you watched that.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? You know, we really get work going. But so 10 of the last 12 they've conceded have all either been scored or created on the right-hand side. So between the right centre-back and the right-back. Then if you look over the season, it's 72% of the goals have come from that side. And it's crazy when you think of... So I basically broke it down from that side of the pitch, between the centre-backs and then the left and the left-hand side. It was just crazy amount of times it's going down there. I think there's a structural problem. I think highlighted by the goal you conceded against Rangers. It was a 7-1 win, but that first goal was an indictment of Liverpool's season. Joe Gomez is massively out of position. He's far too wide, he's not compact enough, and that's Liverpool. Liverpool are a compact side that counter-press. And that is a huge problem for me. And whether it's putting Salah through the middle, whether Trent goes right, whether Joe Gomez comes in at right back or Canate comes in at right back, they need to find a solution, because at the moment teams are coming and they'll pull Trent wide, they'll use the channel, and they'll create a goal. Napoli did it over and over and over again. And it's a humongous problem that if Liverpool don't fix, they will start to be real concerns. I guess it comes back to your point,
doesn't it? That there's just no cover for Trent to move him out of position. There's nobody to bring in.
Well, I get this constantly. Play Trent in midfield, but and might be right. You know,
he plays there.
That might ultimately, exactly. But it might ultimately be his move. But who are you playing at right back that's even remotely as good as him?
Dave, quickly, let's get your fourth one in, because we've skipped one. So what was your fourth one?
We're going to go with injuries.
So we can talk about that quite quickly.
You've got that as well. You've got injuries in there.
Where you put injuries quickly?
Yeah, I had injuries as my number one.
Wow. Okay.
Wow.
So your face there was a bit of a picture. You don't agree that that's the biggest issue for Liverpool?
I think the tactical side is more important at the moment, but injuries will play a part in that, right? You know, the amount of midfielders that Liverpool have lost this season.
Exactly that.
Yeah,
and
big.
Liverpool started the season without, and look, some of these are the familiar faces to the Liverpool treatment room. Oxlade-Chamberlain gets injured in pre-season. Naby Keita gets injured at some point during August, as is the norm.
Diaz's been injured, Arthur injured, Trent's been injured. There's quite a few.
Exactly. There's tons of... Obviously, Thiago gets injured, Jordan Henderson gets injured at some point in the start of the season, and it undercuts everything they're trying to do as a result. You know, and that's not to add into the mix of Joe Gomez had injury, Canate's had injuries at the forward line. We've had injuries in the forward line. Liverpool have been chasing the tail, just trying to get an 11 on the pitch, and that's led to weaknesses all over the place. The players who have been fit have been overworked, and that's led to so
Dave,
many more
your
problems.
face, that is it because he's put injuries as you thought that was more of an excuse? You've gone with the tactical reasons.
Come on, we've got counter pressing, we've got tactics, we've got Virgil van Dijk. Injuries, that's boring. You've got top here. Come on.
He's not happy with that.
I've just been accused of being boring by stats.
Okay, we're not going to go on injuries. Should we look at your number threes then? What have you got as your third issue, both of you?
So I've gone counter pressing. I think the counter press is off for Liverpool at the moment.
Go on, explain a bit about that.
So when Liverpool, yesteryear would lose the ball, they're on you. They win the ball back, they're super aggressive, they play up high.
Heavy metal football, as Jurgen
Heavy metal football. You look at the pressing numbers in the background, there's less in terms of per game. Making pressures obviously means the possession side of things, so it is a slight style thing as well. But in terms of they're pressing less high up the pitch and winning the ball back in those areas. That is a default Liverpool Jurgen Klopp thing. And again, from being really boring and watching all those goals, and it kind of made me a little happy, there was moments where you had opposition playing out from the back, playing through Liverpool's press, and then the reaction being really bad. So not exactly the counter press, but more pressing high. And that's just so un-Liverpool under Klopp.
Do you think that's attitude related? Because I recall watching the Man United-Liverpool game, and that was the first time I really remember watching a United-Liverpool game and thinking, it was down to injuries as well, but I felt like a few of the players didn't fancy getting into the back, which is a rarity for a young club Liverpool.
I mean, less so at Old Trafford, because we've got an abysmal record at Old Trafford, but, I can agree with that. I think there's been a little bit of an attitude thing where Andy Robertson actually pointed this out about how Liverpool's system's built on everyone fighting together. You cover for your mate, you cover for him, you cover for him, and there's been a couple of times where players have, I think maybe wants to be on the front foot, have gone, we'll turn this round, instead of going, no, let's dig in, let's go and be tight, let's go and win the ball back first. You know, that kind of like, you're waiting for the next, you're waiting for someone to sort it out so you can go and do the next bit, as opposed to everyone working together, and maybe that's an attitude thing. So I went, and it's kind of a, again, it exposes a couple of these things. It's Liverpool not using enough emojis. That's the problem. It's not signing a prime-aged central midfielder. And it's where Liverpool, they've refreshed in a number of areas in the squad. You know, I mentioned the right back thing. They have brought a young right back in. They brought a cover at left back in. They brought Canate in. They brought Jota in. They brought Nunez in. They brought Diaz in. They don't haven't bought midfielders, you know, and Harvey Elliott was the last guy who plays midfield. He was, and obviously Arthur, who's now
he was like a convert from a forward at Fulham, wasn't he? A winger almost.
Do you know what? It's interesting about this. I mean, I've heard so many Liverpool fans talk about this as like this midfield area is so important. So who do you want then? Who is the kind of player that Liverpool need? Because so many Liverpool fans have identified this.
Well, Liverpool obviously went for Tchouaméni in the summer against Real Madrid, so there's clearly a little bit of a profile in there. And obviously Jude Bellingham is the big headline one that Liverpool need to go out and buy a generationally talented midfield player who's good enough to come in and play now, but you're going to get 5, 6, 7. You're going to get him up to and beyond his prime years. We haven't got enough players between the ages of 23 and 28 who play in midfield. There's barely anyone, and the ones who are on the cusp of it is Keita. Never really kicked into gear for him for a variety of reasons. Similar with Oxlade-Chamberlain with injuries. And then you've got a bunch of young kids. You've got Carvalho in, you've got Elliott, you've got Jones, who are all just slightly on the too young side. They really need someone to come in who's just ready-made for Liverpool.
I think that counter-pressing links with that. I think Liverpool's midfielders, when, you know, back in the day, you're thinking of Wijnaldum, Henderson, Fabinho midfield, that's work, that's aggression. It suits the style. It means that they can hunt in packs. I feel Liverpool have gone away from that and picked maybe more creative players to break teams down from central midfield. And I think that's a big problem. So going out there and buying someone that just does the hard yards, does the work, like someone that we kind of chatted before about, I think Declan Rice as an 8 for Liverpool would be absolutely perfect in terms of what he can do.
Because the way Liverpool play?
Way Liverpool play, I think he'd also play number 6. I think that's the beauty of him. He'd come in and play both roles, and you've got a player that's at a real top level. But also looking at maybe a Manu Kone from Gladbach, again, an all-action French midfielder, presses, wins the ball back, is aggressive, skillful, had some of his best games against Bayern Munich, which I think is a real good judge of a Bundesliga player. They may need to kind of tweak it, I think. Going back to having the hard work in midfield and the aggression, I think will help them massively, because they've got the flair going forward.
Let's go to number 2 then, because I think you both got the same man.
We've got pictures of Mohamed
Salah. So the
Salah.
final category, agreeing on this.
Well.
And in the order.
So mine is more a hangover from the quadruple. So sad Mo Salah representing that really well on my picture. I really like this one. They've really done me there.
Quadruple attempts, we should say.
Yeah, exactly. Thanks, mate. Liverpool's failed attempt at the quadruple.
Great season.
63 games last season. And I think physical fatigue, which then links into the injuries point, which comes back around to that again. But actually, the psychological impact of
it's a lot of games.
When we've come second in the past, it's easy to go next season we'll go one more. This team is never going to, I think it's fair to say, and no team probably ever will win the quadruple. So to come within effectively, 2 or 3 goals, what it amounted to being probably the greatest football side of all time, and then not to do that, I'm not sure how you pick yourself up and go, because every season is going to fall below that standard.
It takes a certain sort of mentality to win the treble, doesn't it, in English football? That was a little jive, I'm sorry. The big thing that I wanted to move on to that,
I hated that.
the quadruple, reading Pep Linders' book, fantastic book, but he talks about each game being a final. So they've sold to the Liverpool squad that every game is a final, from the first game of the season to the last. Not quite getting there, and then selling that same story this next year might be quite a tough thing to go with. Like, how do you... These players that are world-class, that have played at such a high level, you keep saying the same message, could be quite difficult. So maybe there's a kind of tweak in terms of how they sort of communicate to the squad. My Mohamed Salah thing's more of he's playing too wide. He's playing far too wide. Needs to play through the middle. Needs to be in a goal-scoring position. We saw that against Rangers.
He's suffered a little bit again, and it goes back to number 1, injuries. And if I actually go back to the Darwin Nunez thing, absolutely, just to prove my point, is that I feels like his role's changed, and no one can quite. There has to be a logical reason behind it. Why is Mo Salah staying so wide in the pitch? There has to be a logistical reason for it, and a logical reason, but we're not seeing it because Liverpool's midfield's been unbalanced because of injuries, and the attack's been offset because of the injuries to Jota and
like I've linked that all in. Very quickly, massive game this weekend on Sky, of course, Liverpool, Man City. Can we get quick score predictions?
I think Liverpool will win by 3-2.
Ooh, Dave?
4-1 Man City.
I'll go 3-1 Man City.
Oh, I'm going to go 2-2.
Oh,
draw, yeah. Should we do where they're finishing the league as well?
Yeah, go on then.
Go on. Where are you finishing the league?
Liverpool are going to finish 3rd this season.
Liverpool going to battle relegation and then finish 3rd.
OK, there we go.
Yeah, I'm going 3rd.
You go 3rd as well?
Yeah.
Oh, we'll go 3rd as well then.
Wow.
Why not? Stick with that.